Aloha and welcome to Intuitive Talk Story. You're listening to 96.1 FM Kohala, and I am your host, Michal Anna, and I am excited to have back with me Brother Gabe. Welcome.
Aloha, Michal.
Thank you for joining me today to dive into part two of exploring the inner child, finding peace, working with all the things that come up. So before we dive in, we're just going to all take a minute, kind of get ourselves into the space of intuitive talk story. So taking a breath, breathing into your center, and just taking a moment to release anything you're doing, if possible. Gather your energies. Breathe into your center. Perhaps feel your grounding connected to the center of the earth. Feel yourself connected in your heart and your head, aligning the two. Breathing into connection to unity, source, all that is, however you perceive that. To be fully present as we engage in this kind of intuitive work here and now, real time, to listen, to learn, and be present. Mahalo. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, last time I had you in the air, we were getting into some really, really good stuff and talking about how to really dive into our wounding and tools. So, I'm just gonna go straight in. What's something maybe that's come up for you? Because I think we're healing in real time here. I'm very proud of Gabe even being on the air talking about these things. So, what are some things that have come up for you, and maybe express a little bit about where you are in the path and what's going on for you?
For sure. Yeah, just to put it out to everybody out there, this is all real-time stuff. I'm not sitting up on a pedestal trying to say I've mastered anything. I'm in the midst of going through all this in real time. Michal has helped me open up and start seeing behaviors and stuff I've was called back to Big Island to be a part of this. However, the design was meant for me to get here. I'm here and learning to be more present with myself and my family, my work, and just daily life routines, and not falling back into the world of everything that I can fall back into: guilt, shame, fears, victims, all that has become a constant routine in my life since as early as I could remember, but not understanding it and having a comfort with it, because that's what that's how you deal with life. Oh, I have anxiety, or I have this, or I have that. And having children, and I have to say, too, I have a baby mama with 2 other children, so I'm not a perfect man in that aspect either. We all have our situations, but I have a baby mama with 2 children, and that's a whole nother layer to me being a better communicator and a better person, understanding differences, and, 17 years later, trying to put those together to create a strength instead of tearing each other apart, and not affecting the kids also, and then it affects you, and it just becomes a savage circle. So, and then I have my beautiful partner now, who has been very patient with me going through this for years, and she sees the side that she knows the inner side of me is a healthy, beautiful person. And sometimes it takes, people on your side to see that and be patient with you to hopefully that you come around and want to share that more through the day instead of all the other stuff I was talking about earlier. The guilts, the shames, the victims, the poor me's, all the stuff that we put up as a protector, a barrier, the barriers, the protections.
Let you know, thank you, Gabe, for being so real and honest around that, and speaking to, you know, the depth of pain that really goes on. That's where most people's anger, rage, control issues, where is it coming from? Really deep pain, that shame, that guilt that you speak of, the fears, those are laid in early for most people. And, and I want to say that, this is actually really healing for me also, even though I'm in practitioner mode, really giving Gabe tools. I'm also giving him tools from my own very deep life experience, which is, I on the other side of that, it's often very difficult for a partner or a woman to hold space for a man in these capacities unless he's really willing to show up like Gabe's doing, which really heals my own spirit, to feel the male presence being so vulnerable, to be so real about they're experiencing, and to be honest and transparent about it, is super healing in the feminine when you have been on that side of holding space. And these things are difficult. They're hard topics. And a lot of couples are dealing with these really deep things, right? So I'm so proud of this family in doing the work and being really open and honest to go there and see what are the tools that we can incorporate as a family. And then Gabe really taking real self-responsibility in doing that. And so, yeah, so tell us, we're going to kind of go into a real time experience. Like, in that taking self responsibility, I know we talked a little earlier that you're learning lots of cool stuff. So, love if you'd be willing to share an example of that from your week.
Sure, why not? Earlier this week I had another, one of my usual episodes that I won't try and voice as usual, because also a tools that Michal has shared with me, words sound power, which I've known, and we all do know. When we were born, we know what we say is what we manifest. So I'll try and change those words to, I had another opportunity to learn more about myself this week. And so I think when we go into, we were talking about rage last week. You can call it anger, rage. It all comes down to the same thing. You can put any kind of word, frustration, but it all comes from a sense of feeling victim or feeling attacked or not being heard, and going into a mode of protection, And so I had one of those episodes earlier this week, and as it was coming on, I knew it was coming on, and I knew I had to step away from the situation this time instead of just keep filling the air with words from that place, because it was with my partner, and she was just trying to help me, and I took it the wrong way, and I went to that place of feeling attacked or whatever the words would be. But I took that moment and I said, "Excuse me, I don't know if it'll take 10 minutes or a day, but I need a little space just to have a little chat with my inner child and let him know it's not just that it's okay, but like, why are we doing this? Why are we acting like this? Get back into the moment, be present in the moment, get control, and find where that wound is. Why did a certain word or a certain reaction make you feel like a loser or like incapable of providing, or
bringing up those doubts about self, or I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy.
Self doubts, worthy, and so yeah, I took the time, and I'd find moments where it would come up, and I'd just take, even if it was 10 breaths, and just like, it's okay. I do know what I'm doing. I am a good person. And just trying to keep it at a stable level instead of going up to the level 10 where I just lose control and everything's just chaos and I can't focus the rest of the day. I kept it at a lower notch, and it allowed me to see it more, what I was dealing with, if I could just keep it down enough, because now I'm going, the more it comes up, the more I'm aware of what I'm dealing with, instead of just like, okay, here it comes, raw. I'm going to raw. Everyone's going to feel that. I'm going to go to the job site with this kind of like scowl on my face and snap at whoever, not really for the right reason. Instead of, my communication's off, everything becomes off. Stay in control, go through it, and use it as a lesson. But it's hard, because you have to, once you're aware of that, then you have to face, what is it that's making me feel this way. And sometimes you have to look at yourself as, you have to judge yourself almost to be able to get through it and be like, okay, not, I don't want to say judge yourself.
well,
Yeah, that wasn't what I meant to say.
Well, I think what you're just saying is be discerning, and you have to call out the elephant in the room. So you have to really see what's happening and be willing to go, I'm scared, I'm afraid. What is my inner self feeling? So I love what you've been saying, and I have a couple, I just want to kind of reiterate. You talked about communicating, first really communicating what you needed, and that you stopped what was going on. This is really important, because we tend to keep going, right? It keeps going and going. So we have to stop, not say more damaging things, and communicate to whoever you're speaking to that, hey, this is what I need. Then you took the time to go within and put your hands on your body, which and ask your inner self what's happening, and start giving yourself what you need. And then you're discerning, like, what's actually happening here. And like, so I think what you're saying when you say judge is more, what's happening here? Like, okay, I'm really scared. This is what's really happening. My inner self is feeling abandoned, lost. We have to call out what's actually happening on a really deep internal level in order to get to what's going on right now in front of my face. I like to always say, whatever's happening right in front of you is never the issue.
Yeah, I didn't judge wasn't the best word, but yeah, you have to look at, that kid in the corner of the room crying or beat up or whatever that kid is. You have to face him, and that's hard sometimes, and that's what we don't want to do. That's why we don't go through the process of wanting to heal, because you don't want to go back into that room. Why would you want to go back in there? You want to shut the door and be like, that's the past, I'm moving forward. But sometimes if something like that's hanging, allowing you to, you can't move on until that room's cleaned up. Like, you can't just throw all your stuff in a storage room, shut the door, and expect it not to still be there. You have to deal with it, clean it up, then you could shut the door. But to open that door and look back at the wounded side of you is, it could be really challenging.
And this is where that technique that we talked about and I've brought up in working with your inner child, not just to go back in the room and sit in the room and talk about it, and you're going back in that room and in the field. So that is, you're kind of entering a meditative state, be as much present in your higher self, connected to the earth, connected to source, and then really going back to stop. Time is stopped, it's frozen, and seeing what's really happening here. Sometimes, like, let's say someone has an eating disorder, okay, and they were in the car when they were 4 and they didn't get to eat for 8 hours because they didn't have any snacks in the car. It was something simple, and they just didn't eat for 8 hours, but they felt like they were starved, and they felt like nobody cared, and that was an imprint, let's say. So if you went back into that moment and you'd see, oh, see, our parent wasn't trying to harm us, or this wasn't happening, or XYZ, or there is harm, but it's not your parent, or it's not your person, or it's not really them. They're navigating some other energy, some entity, if it's something harmful. and you're then showing your inner child what's really going on in that situation, and then giving them support, giving them an inner hug, and then kind of going, hey, you don't have to hang out here anymore. You see what's happening now, right? You get it. You've discerned the situation. Like, you've kind of gone with it through you've shown your inner self what's really happening, what was going on in this moment. And then your inner self, you take them with you. Like, you want to get out of here, like, get anything you want out of this room, grab whatever you need. Is that your teddy bear? Is that your whatever? And pick it up, and then kind of energetically, you're bringing them into a safe place inside yourself, into your heart space, or, and this gets into kind of what I love to bring up, that for me and my experience, I can't get home myself unless I go to the Holy Mother. So if I go to life, to the life-giving principle, and surrender back into that holy living force. And not everyone has that in a mother per se in our life, but our true mother is really the infinite mother. So that would be another aspect I would throw in there.
Yeah, I think now that you said that, I think I used the word judge, and I guess I did mean it, because and it's okay, but you have to go in, like you were saying, into the back seat of the car to the 8-year-old kid who got starved, and judge your parents for a sec, or judge the situation so you can process it and then allow forgiveness. But how,
And thank
why
you. That's
should
a
we
big part, forgiveness inside the moment.
well,
Yeah.
forgiveness
Yeah.
is the end all
Yeah, correct.
solution, but maybe sometimes you have to be like, hey, that wasn't right.
Mm-hmm.
Or why did you do that to me? Or why were you like that? You have to question it to understand it. You can't just be like, oh, well, forgive them for they know not. Maybe understand it first. Then the forgiveness is more validated and more real, because you could say, oh, yeah, they didn't feed me, and how could they have done that to me, blah, blah, blah. And then you could come full circle, be like, you'll find a true understanding of why you're forgiving them, instead of, oh, I just forgive the situation.
Sure. Like in this particular one, if we went with the food one, that's a simple one where we can see how, as a child, I had a misunderstanding, let's say, because my parents weren't trying to starve me. We just were in the car, and they didn't have snacks either. So nobody had snacks. So it's just they were on the road, and that was the circumstance. So as an adult, and that's a lot what happens, I think, is people dismiss experiences because as adults, you understand what happened. You're like, well, this happened, and I know my dad's just like that. And we brush it off, or we excuse, or we dismiss it because we know, oh, well, they just didn't feed me. It's fine. We aren't acknowledging or validating our inner child, so that our inner child feels the validation. I might already know as an adult, well, of course, we were in the car 8 hours, nobody had snacks. That's silly. And I might judge myself and put myself down. And I want to make a differentiation, actually, because I think for the habit of this word, maybe we can all make an agreement. I like to use observe as a word, and then judgment to me really gets more into an opinion. So if I have a judgment, like I might have a discernment or an observation about what I see is going on about your situation, let's say, but I'm not judging you. I'm not going, oh, well, you did that, so you're so. I don't have a feeling about it. I'm staying in neutrality. So to me,
I'm not trying to give judgment a powerful word.
Right.
More just understanding of, sit with your inner child or that experience and be like, yeah, why wasn't I fed? To be able to find that answer in a forgiving way.
Yeah.
So then when you do forgive it, it's forgiven and it's gone, and it's not just the words of like, okay, I get it, they were blah blah blah, but observe the situation and oh, that wasn't fair. Okay, no, it was fair. Okay, and process it. Like, finish processing it, and not just try and move through it quickly, but really heal that, before going on to the next piece.
Absolutely. And forgiveness is a paramount in there. Ho'oponopono, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. That has to happen. And sometimes you might need that if it's something more, depending on what it is, from the other being involved. And what's cool is back to when we're working in quote unquote in field, time is not linear. So you are accessing a multidimensional room where it's still going on. Your energy is still there, which is why it still has power, right? And so because it's still, that's why you have to go there and get yourself out, because it's like you're, like you were explaining earlier back to your story. um, you're starting to quote unquote trigger, and we're going to use that word. I know it's not everyone's favorite word, but when we start to feel something coming on, it is a quote unquote trigger where we know, oh, something's happening. So when a trigger comes up, we then can go in and realize that we are oftentimes misperceiving something. Like you were bringing up how you might feel attacked. So when you go back into it, you realize, oh, that person's not actually attacking me. I'm receiving it from this place because of this perception I have that's been laid in from this other moment. So what we're doing is erasing that moment and giving yourself the opportunity to come from this moment now. So when that person says to me something that's actually quite logical, I'm not going back in time or to another space in time and answering them from another moment. I can be fully present and answer them from this moment.
Correct.
So that is really the goal, is for us to communicate, take a step, recognize what's happening, go within, dialogue with your inner self, create this connection, ho'oponopono, see what needs to happen, observe, discern, see what's happening, and then kind of pull your inner self out of that space to this moment now, to a safe space. And that safe space is really embodied a lot by recognizing that wholeness of the divine mother, divine father. I say it like that. You can say it in any way you like. Electric, magnetic energy, source, Christ, the Buddhic mind, however you perceive your path. There is no judgment here. All paths lead to God, or all paths lead
I
home.
take back the judgment word.
No, that's great. It's great to bring it out, because we do use these words a lot, and we don't, we put meanings on so many things that we don't necessarily mean sometimes. So,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different multi levels to healing in general. I mean, as a male, as a female, and as a male role, we carry a lot of stigma, or I think we talked about this the last time, like the pressure, whatever, this and that. But we also don't have the tools. I mean, the generations before us, I think our male role models, you know, as the generations changed, the male role model style changed, and then as each new generation comes, we want to try and change that. Oh, I don't want to be like this part of my dad, so I'm going to try and change this. But then sometimes those changes aren't always the best changes, but that's the change that we made in this generation. And how do we learn from two generations or three generations? We always want to go back. Oh, well, my grandfather said this, or this is how they did it 100 years ago, or whatever. But really just being true to yourself in the moment. All the knowledge is there. All the past generational hand-downs, um, through our teachings of our great, 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 as far as you can go, are there. We were taught fear. We were taught shame. We were taught um, all these things that make us lose control and not stay focused, because we weren't born with that. We were born with intelligence. We were born with peace. We were born knowing our job and our role. And so we were taught this, and we've carried it on because we've created like a record in our mind or whatever. You hear the words of how your dad talked to you, or somebody else you looked up to, a role model in your life, and how they talked to their children or their wife or their friends. And as a little kid, impressions are big. Like, we're all impressionable people. That's a part of our nature as humans, is to want to seek, uh, you know,
Connection.
connection.
And often what's going on is validation. Many of us are trying to seek validation too.
Yes. I know for myself personally, like I'm not expecting to be like, you know, um, the perfect man tomorrow or next year, but I want to take the time to do it because even the little, my partner today, we were talking about my other son and just like really trying to put on, all of us need to understand that a small success is a success, which is a great success. We want to have these big successes and these big jumps and you know, uh, these big moments instead of really focusing on the small successes every day. One little small one, because that becomes bigger successes. And so, in this part of my life right now, trying to become a better communicator, which then will help in all my situations at my family, at my house, my friendships, my social life, and my work job. I have a lot of work to do in front of me, but I'm also willing to take it on because the small successes I have had since I've started to open up more to this healing and these tools that Michal has given me, I've felt the response from it when it does happen. When I feel balanced and I have that good communication, or I have that really good dinner with my family and we laugh at the table, or I have a really good work day where everything is smooth and communication's good and everything gets done right, and I have a good night's sleep, I feel what that feels like, and I know it's from putting in the work and having that return. So that's what's going to keep me fighting. And I'm going to have moments where I know I'll have to, learn, but not being afraid to know that I will have more episodes, I'll call them, but going into these episodes with my eyes wide open instead of curling up in a ball and hiding from it because you want to, because it's a lot and it hurts. It hurts inside. It hurts your soul. It hurts your everything. And it's hurting everybody around you. And so it just makes you curl up even more. It's like a roly-poly. You get touched and you turn into a roly-poly and you just want to disappear, and I get it. I totally get it. But to go into it eyes wide open every chance you can and then look at it as an experience and not I I went back to that place again. Well, you went back to it with your mind open because you do need to go back in there and see it to heal it. But you have to do it aware. You can't just keep going back into that room and shutting the door. Go in the room, leave the door open up the blinds, get some air movement in there, and let it breathe and sit in there for a minute and pick it up piece by piece. You don't have to just clean it up real fast. Pick up one thing at a time and look at it. Do you need it? Do you want it? Or is it trash?
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful work. Beautiful thoughts on that. And you bring up some great things around that rewire. Once you do that, pick up the trash or clean it out. You brought up giving yourself the words and the recognition and giving yourself what you need so that you can keep infusing that. So when we've rutted out the driveway, right, and you've had that pathway going, I suck, I'm a loser, or this or that, it's grooved in the brain. So we're making new grooves in the brain. So that rewire is telling yourself every time you have that negative thought, which is I hear you talking about, is rewiring your language to know I'm doing a great job. I'm a good person. I have everything I need. Saying what you need, that you need to hear for yourself, whatever that might be, whatever you might be going through. Yeah.
I like that analogy of the gravel and the rut. Perfect.
Yeah, because you got to stand up on top of the driveway and balance your truck for a little while, and before it like smooths out the driveway, and that's multiple times,
Or
man.
even
It doesn't
just
happen
watching
at once.
one of those, the big rains come and you
Okay,
see
yeah.
that crack in the driveway and it starts going. You could stare at it and be like, that's going to erode this part of my driveway. Either I'm going to just go in the house and I'm like, I'm not going to go out in the rain and put on my rain jacket,
Right.
and literally all you have to do is take your shovel and just cut it off to a little bit, and it will literally reroute it and not erode the driveway.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love
But
that.
are you feeling like you want to get out in the rain and do it? Or are you going to just wake up in the morning and be like, shoots, I should have did that because now my driveway's eroded. Where I could have just went outside, picked up the shovel in the dark rain, which is the dark room, and just cut another little channel and divert that water and reroute the rut. And you'll be able to get out of your driveway in the morning.
Woo! That's right. I love it. I love that. Exactly. Exactly. So when we start to realize it's just simple motions, it's not as hard as we think. Tackle what we have right in front of us. And then you also brought up the blessings and drawing on the ancestors and the knowledge of the ancestors. So I want to say here, like this is something, we live here in Kohala. I live here in Kohala. Gabe is working here, and back and forth between Hawaii and California. But having living here, of course, props to all of the Ohana, to Hawaiian families who are still navigating ancestral ways and who have a lot of family support and to navigate the family support, and to all beings out there who have tribal input. I'm very grateful. I come from a Latina family. I have quite a bit of family and a lot of family connection. However, even so, I don't know about I don't know that many of us other than I saw a very cool genealogy of the Kamehameha bloodlines recently, which was phenomenal. Wow, that took a lot of effort. But to know your lineage really far back, most of us don't have that knowledge. And so we didn't get a lot of stuff that we may have wanted from our great, 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 great aunties, our great, great, great uncles. Maybe things didn't get passed down, or because of trauma, war, destruction for, well, all of us, all people. I don't really feel that there's too many intact, all the way intact, that got everything. Like we're each doing that. We're all doing that. We're all been getting ourselves whole. But as a society, we've been broken. We've been separated. We've had a lot of traumas and wars and destructions, and so that inputs to the bloodlines, to the DNA, and it translates and it's given down through the ancestral lines. So as we're healing and as you're doing this work, you are healing it for your sons, you're healing it for those behind you too. You're healing even for those, the wounded ones that you came from, right? And that's often, well, we all come from wound, which is why we're perpetuating more wound, because we were wounded, they were wounded, the ones before them were wounded, not just yourself. So recognizing that even what you're carrying is bigger than yourself. It's not like, oh, I'm so bad. No, it's you're carrying more than just your own. And then the opportunity is, as we heal, we get to actually, in the meditative space there, and through prayer, through connection, there are ways to, call back the blessings, and you can just intend it. Like I intend to be connected to my lineage and to be connected to the blessings in an upright fashion from when my lineage was actually in wholeness. When we think about that, like just think for a second, what does that feel like to even think about your lineage in wholeness? How far back do you have to go to feel or sense wholeness, absolute wholeness, no destruction, no inversion, no hierarchy, harmony and love? How far back? And feeling into that and bringing that feeling, that expression, that knowingness forward, sparkling it through the lineage, sparkling it through time to this moment now, so that we can embody that, our true gifts. And you spoke to that we have everything right here in us if we choose to awaken it, if we choose to go within and remember.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I think through I like that thought of, the long lineages. Like I've traveled to many different countries, and certain cultures have brought me to want to like study the culture itself more through whatever I found excited me about it. But like I always had this sense of like, wow, what amazing um, blessing it is for here in Hawaii, Africa, all over the planet of they have whether it's oral history or written history, and you know they their ancestors or their lineage, just even their close, great 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 grandfather, all from that area. So the stories are still kept together, real. There's a bloodline there, and there's something really powerful about that, and really beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
because what I can see when I see, the men and women in those areas, villages. I've been to multiple different villages, and you see a sense of, they walk different. They walk more upright. They walk with their eyes forward. They walk kind of with like in the moment intentions, because they're not carrying this like, who am I and where am I from? And I feel like American culture. That's all I could speak for. Is there's through the system, or however it was played in. I'm gonna say the system. There was a they wanted to separate. Oh, when you graduate school, go to college in another state, or go get your own place, and you know, separate the family. Our family, there was adoptions involved and stuff. So, um, me and my siblings, we don't have anything except up to our parents, and um, and that's fine. But so there's a little more to sift through. But it is pretty awesome to see cultures have that as a background.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, and I too, Gabe and I have both actually, it's how we know one another is engaging in the study of various cultures and dance and music. And yeah, I too experienced that and being in various villages. And what's always I love is, when everyone knows the songs, everyone knows the same songs. In many cultures, it's like that. You go to Brazil, it's similar. In many places where everyone knows the same songs and we sing together. And that vibratory experience has been lost especially in the West, right? There's just not people don't come together and sing and use their voice and put their collective
No, we know
intention.
like commercial jingles and stuff.
Right. Yeah, right. So that's why I'm Gabe and I both grew up in America, and why I went off to see all these cultures and traveled the world and learning what is the evolved village is what really to me is what it's all about. What are we creating? We're learning from all of these cultures and from what's come before us, but what I've found is that even in if anyone in the world had it completely dialed, oh, well, gosh, we would have been further along by now. So there's been broken pieces for all of us, just different. And I used to feel like, in doing nonprofit work, running that a foundation for 12 years and building a school in Africa, in Guinea, I just always found that was definitely a huge connector of the West really needs the knowledge of the people and that connection to family and genealogy and ancestry. The West need that, and the people there will need resources because we have so much here, and they're dealing with more of lack there, where we're dealing in the West with a lack of connection. And so those two things coming together to me is builds that evolved village, which to me is the vision for all of us to learn from the cultures, to learn from one another, and to take what works and then really create a unified field and a place where we can commune and come together. And that means that those of us who didn't have all of the pieces intact, we get to sift through the stuff and give thanks and bring stuff back into wholeness as it was meant to be, as is possible for all of us if we choose it.
For sure. And yeah, it's pretty cool when you are trusted enough to be invited into those spaces to see it and feel it in real time too. The villages or places here, Hawaii really shows a lot of that culture of sitting down with family and having meals together, and having events together. There's a sense of strength and unity with that, and that's an awesome play. That's an awesome foundation to have to be able to heal. Like, I'm gonna just impress on men or whatever. Like, talk to your fellow homie, or your son or your uncle or whatever, but like have a real talk, like we could bring up the fishing stories and that, but don't be afraid of, hey, this is how you feeling, how you really feeling, what's up, or share something with me, um, and get down, don't be afraid to like.
Yeah, to have some authentic discussions around. I was saying today to somebody, like, wouldn't it just be so cool if we just all recognize we've all been traumatized? I mean, we've all had trauma. It doesn't matter if it's big or small. We all live here on the earth. There's traumatizing things happening all the time. Actually, we can be traumatized, and if we just recognized more and it wasn't so scary, we would openly talk like we are now, just knowing, yeah, what are you dealing with? Well, I'm dealing with this, and if we did that, then we also could heal and make it through certain things. In my experience from my own self, certain things couldn't heal because you have to be willing to be transparent. You have to be willing to go, yeah, that's what's happening. When we're willing to call out the elephant in the room, we're willing to have real talks, then we can get further. But when we pretend or we mask or we continue to cover things up, then there's no room for growth.
Yeah, and through the masking, I think it's easy with our world right now, especially, to be careful of um, politics, to be careful of sports games, to be careful of any kind of news or entertainment to get in the way of those conversations, because it's so ingrained in our culture to start talking and then some of those things come up because those are designed to break your attention away from yourself, and a real conversation is to speak about who won a game or who's in politics for some reason. And no, I do support local politics. I mean, what I'm trying to say is local politics, great. Like, get involved in your communities and stuff. But all the other stuff, put it to rest and have real conversations with, like, when you'll know when it's real because you'll feel it. And don't be afraid to get emotional with your brother. Really don't. Like, he wants to get emotional too. We're all trying to hold on to not feeling emotional. Doesn't mean you have to cry while you're talking, but let the emotion come out when you're talking to your brother, because brother to brother, when you can share that moment, it's a huge healing experience. When you can really feel the conversation go there, and as two men to let go, feel emotional, because it's a real talk, it really puts you on another level, and it's really awesome. So try and leave anything that you heard on TV last night or a show, any of that stuff, any kind of entertainment stuff, I feel has a real impact on us talking man to man, because it's just filler information, and I don't want to talk filler information. I want to talk real talk.
Absolutely. Yeah, and let me just say, from a woman's perspective, um, for those of us, like women who are supporting or have supported men who are going through things, or vice versa, you need other beings. So women do that more naturally. So men, you need other people to support you, because your woman inevitably ends up being in roles that she can't be in, like your mother, your this, your that. She can't hold that. It's too
That's
much.
not her job.
Yeah, and then you're over traumatized, and then you can't do it. So, men, if you have more support systems to help you move through things, then your woman can be a woman with you and not play out these other roles that often end up happening in relationships. So with that, we're going to take a quick station break, because otherwise we won't, and we'll come right back.
Aloha. Join Tutu and Me Home Visiting Program, a free service for caregivers with young keiki ages birth to 5 years old, and now serving expecting caregivers who are in their last trimester. Tutu and Me Home Visiting Program honors you as your keiki's first and most important teacher, and strengthens the relationship between you and your keiki. When you participate in our program, you'll receive one-on-one sessions, get free at-home activity resources, and access tips and knowledge from our unique curriculum that weaves in Native Hawaiian values with current parenting strategies. You may also be eligible to receive free diapers and wipes from our community partner, the Hawaii Diaper Bank. Tutu and Me Home Visiting Program serves families on Hawaii Island. If you're interested in enrolling, visit our website, pidf.org, and find us under Ohana Support. Or call North Kohala visitor Lonnie Bowman at 365-3157. Tutu and Me home visiting caregivers learn Nauke Kuleana. The privilege is yours. You've got this.
Hi, my name is Grace.
And my name is Matthew.
And we're 7th graders from Kohala Middle School.
We will be talking about bullying. Bullying is when someone repeatedly harasses or puts down someone verbally or physically. Bullying could cause suicide.
Some facts about suicide are that Hawaii has the second highest suicide rate among teens in the USA.
Make Hawaii a better place by being nicer to others.
If you see someone trying to commit suicide, try to stall them before you get some professional help. Also try to create conversation with them to keep their mind off the topic.
LP 96.1 FM, Kohala.
Aloha. I'm Michal Anna, and we are back at Intuitive Talk Story. I'm here with my guest, Brother Gabe. Thank you for being here, and welcome back.
Hi.
We were talking about connection and, having outlets to connect, having more than just yourself, and also what are we putting in our framework? What are we deciding to put our energy towards? So let's go a little bit there. In my framework, energy flows where attention goes. So what are some thoughts you might have on that?
Just how things are designed. A lot of entertainment information and things that just distract us. There's a lot of distractions out there from us wanting to grow. We say we're evolving and we're not. We're absolutely not evolving, and we need to evolve emotionally. That's, I think, our biggest next step. And we all say it, we all know it. Technology is downgrading us, but in the meantime, if we had real talk with each other and kept any entertainment information out of the story, then we want to use that as you start talking, hey, what's up, how's your day, blah, 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 and then someone will bring up, oh, did you watch the game, or something to break that from going there because we're afraid to go there. And even if it's, something simple like, when I've traveled to West Africa, in the village, even in the cities too, but in the village, just saying good morning is one of the most beautiful things I experienced. It's not just good morning or how's it. It's how are you? How's your family? How's your mom? How's your dad? How's your kids? How's your health? And it's this back and forth conversation, and there's meaning behind it, and that's what I feel we need more in life. You don't have to take that whole time, but we have this such hurry, rush energy here in our world over here to, go, hey, what's up? How you feeling? But if you ask someone how they're feeling and then just kind of keep walking by, you're not really asking them how they're feeling. And it doesn't need to be a 10-minute conversation. Oh, woke up a little sick, or woke up, had a little fuss. Oh, tell me about it, And even if we give each other a couple minutes space to listen to your fellow homie and just listen, even if it's a couple minutes, that might heal that person for that moment and allow him to just have a smoother day because he felt listened to. Because we are alone with all this, but we're not alone. Mm-hmm. It is ourself who has to do the inner healing, but we have to do it together too, because we can't go anywhere unless we're together doing it.
Absolutely. And that also brings up, which we touched on earlier, is self-responsibility. So this is huge because just to shout out around programs that we're talking about: control, rage, anger, which we've touched on before, connect into victim, victimizer, blame, game programs, which are programs. They're things we run when our emotions and our wounding get triggered. We actually ignite programming that can be pulled, of course, but with our conscious intention, we can release those programs and realize, oh wow, that's not me. And you've spoken to this before a little bit, Gabe, but I'd love to hear your thoughts a little bit on, wow, that's not me, like having that experience, and then also taking responsibility and how empowering that is.
Yeah, the that's not me part, I'm still kind of picking through that, trying to, but I do now understand that there's a part, it's weird to say, but, there's like another voice inside me that kind of can take over because I lost control. Now you have this other energy kind of speaking for you, and that's the energy of the hurt child, or the angry one, or the one that felt left behind and yelling out, screaming to whoever you're trying to have a communication with, which is usually your partner or someone that you love that's close to you. And so yeah, being aware of that and being like, okay, hold on, let me tame this tame this lion real quick, and I'll get back to you and have a healthier communication.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, taking self-responsibility over what you're doing, and then speaking to that, which to me, if you were speaking from the other end of that dialogue, right, the woman's part there, if someone's holding space for you, if someone is projecting or being abrasive with you, then to have what you're saying, for you to take self-responsibility, for guys out there, for you to take self-responsibility and be able to share with your partner, hey, back to that, I'm communicating what's really going on, that I realize what I've done here, that this isn't how I want to show up, and I want to choose another behavior. I'm taking responsibility for myself, and I'm not blaming or choosing to continue that pattern of victimization.
Yeah, and also as you're saying that, I'm realizing being able to take the time to sit back, because I think, like in this last week's moment, I wanted to express myself, but I didn't have the words. So in return, I was kind of like being angry to shut the conversation down, because I didn't understand how to put the words to say, hey, please trust me, I got this. Instead, I was saying, you don't trust me. Why don't you see what I'm trying to do? So I did need to take a break for a second to be able to come back and say, hey, babe, I do understand what you're saying. And I do have a hold of it, or I don't really know how to express it, but I said what I needed to say after I went through it in a way where she was able to receive it, because I was trying to say the same thing, but with an angry tone. She wasn't hearing it because it wasn't coming out from a sense of peace and power, right? I wasn't in my power to be like, oh, I totally understand. Here's what we're going to do. How can we talk about this? I do trust myself in this situation, and I know we're going to make it through this. But I was like, I know. I know we're this, and, why don't you trust me? Or, it was coming out with such intensity that no one's going to listen to that.
And plus, I think you're bringing up a great point for all of us in communicating, which is when we communicate speaking from the I perspective. I know myself. I can be I'm still working on my communications for sure in those moments when they're really needed, which is using, things that talk about how you feel yourself versus pointing fingers. And that's a lot of what you're saying. The big differentiation I heard when you just expressed that was one took response, I feel something, and the other one pointed a finger. You don't trust me versus I'm feeling something, or I trust myself and I would like you to join me, or whatever it might be. When we take ownership and speak from ourselves, then we don't create a more offense defense setup, because that's what typically happens in these situations. It starts to get escalated. We start to then get offended, take things personal,
Right.
and now we're attacking or defending, offending.
Yeah, because in a sense of control, in the if in the real situation or the right or wrong, the situation that could have been a healthier way is I could have just listened and been like, okay, I totally understand. Please trust me on this, or here's what I'm thinking. Let's put some like trust into that.
Or I'd like to be heard, and this is what's important to me.
Right.
And then listening to what's important to the other person. But what's really important, I think that we didn't touch on yet, is that what comes up when the initial first part, though, isn't even really about this moment. It's about the moment of not feeling safe, secure, and feeling like, oh no, I'm in shame. And so, and you talked about that when we
Yeah, and
chatted
then
earlier.
you self-doubt yourself,
Yeah.
and then it just snowballs.
Right. So the first ownership, when you're out there, is realizing, oh, wait, the person in front of me isn't actually,
My enemy.
yeah, and which is huge, because I've been on that side, other side, like, I'm your friend. I'm your friend.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to understand. Well, I'm gonna find that. I'm gonna understand. But yeah, like, you feel attacked, and you're looking at that person as your enemy, and deep in your heart they're not. But where does that come from? Like, why are you my enemy all of a sudden? And then you're sitting on the other side of the table like, what are you talking about? I'm the only one here that's got your back.
That's right. And it's difficult. I mean, you can only do that for so long and be, and not have someone treat you
Hence
well.
why I said my lady's very patient.
But-
There still has to be enough connection for that person to be patient. There has to be something still keeping it together. So, like I said, I have a baby mama. It wasn't because she wasn't patient with me. There was another energy that wasn't allowing us to keep moving forward and to be patient and be there for each other. It was too, not every single person is compatible.
Right, exactly.
So you have to really, every relationship's going to be different. And so it has nothing to do with if you've been in a relationship that didn't work out because the other person wasn't patient or you weren't patient. That's not what I'm getting at all. She's been very patient. Like I said, she's seen me for who I am from the beginning. And because of that, it helps me grow. But yeah, I could sit here and stay in my same patterns. I guarantee she ain't going to be patient, and I can't promise that I'm going to be perfect tomorrow either. And I won't promise that.
But you're trying, and you're making strides, and you're working with honest integrity. And that's, to me, it's willingness to be honest and integral is workable for anybody, is that willingness. And so props to yourself and props to anyone out there who's willing to do the work, who's willing to put one foot in front of the other and just try another day, because it's moment by moment, minute by minute in the work, especially when we're moving through trauma, like, we've been through tough things. We have to be very gentle with ourselves and be compassionate. And that compassion starts with being compassionate with your own little child, giving yourself a hug. And also when you're talking to your inner child, because many people who, when we weren't cared for, when we're talking to your inner child in a way that you allow questions too, like, how are you feeling? Not, you've got it, you're okay, buck up, little camper.
Yeah.
Because we've all been told that a lot, like, you're strong, you can do it.
Yeah.
Which is part of shutting down our inner child. So we want to dialogue with our inner self in a way of like validating, which I think is a big part, and you've spoken to this, of, healing any anger or control is not feeling safe, not being seen, or not feeling worthy. If we don't feel worthy, I myself feel like that was mine, and I've gone through a lot of I need validation. And so that getting validated, we need to validate ourselves and do that with our inner child and give ourselves what we need by taking the time to say, like, what are you really feeling? And it's valid that you're feeling this, and let's take a look at it. Let's see it from another perspective. Let's heal it, and then let's remove yourself from that memory room like we spoke about, or change it entirely, or shift it in some form so that we zero that out, so that no longer has power over our experience.
Clean up the bedroom.
That's right. Clean up that bedroom.
And I do want to go back real quick. Yes, I shouldn't use the word judgment, because now that are at the end of this show, I realize that's actually a lot of our problems, is judging ourselves. I mean, the amount of things that I've done to myself through whatever it was, the choices I've made in my past in this lifetime. The only way I'm going to heal is to not judge myself for it, to forgive. We could go back to blaming our parents or blaming whoever's in the story that gave you that trauma, but then in return, we've done stuff to ourselves, whether it was through drinking or foods that we eat, to any other thing that we put into our body to try and
numb the pain.
So then you do that, and then you judge, oh, well, I was this and I did this to myself. So yeah, don't judge yourself.
Can be a loop. It really can. Yeah.
Let it go.
And let it go. Let it go. Exactly. And that is the shame soup. And I've witnessed the shame soup, and it lets you, it's molasses. One can't move in the shame soup. And then you just, like you said earlier, crawl in a ball and do nothing. And then, well, everything slips away and the life becomes sabotaged.
I had some good borscht at the farmer's market.
So don't sit in the shame soup. Get up and move through it. And we're at the end of our show. Oh my gosh, it's went by way too fast yet again.
Face your fears. Go for it.
And we'll have Gabe back on the show for more Intuitive Talk Story. So thanks for joining us today. Thank you for being here, Gabe.
Thank you, Michal. Keep working hard and doing good for the community here. You're awesome.
Mahalo. Appreciate it. And to all of you out there listening, thank you for joining us. We hope this has been helpful, inspiring, reflective. Okay, have a beautiful day. Aloha.
Aloha.